I'm pretty sure all of us in here can point to some type of events or circumstances that impacted us. Some in some good ways, some in some not so good ways. But 2015 is 2015. It's over, it's history, it's in the record books, never to be replayed and lived again. However, even though 2015 cannot be lived out again, you still have a life to live, right? And you've been granted another year to do it. So we're into 2016, right? So we have a new year, we have new opportunities, we have new trials, we have new challenges that await us. I'm pretty sure over the past few days or so, we all have probably used the phrase Happy New Year when we've conversed with people, whether it's in person or whether it's over the phone, whether it's through a text, whether it's through a Facebook post or a Twitter tweet. I'm pretty sure we've all communicated that phrase to someone else. But did you ever stop to think, what would make this year happy for them? Or even to make it more personal, what would make this year happy for me? What would have to occur for 2016 to be a happy year for you? Or maybe even the happiest year you've ever lived? What about getting a pay raise on your job? What about getting promoted or advancing in rank? What about getting Sailor of the Quarter or getting Sailor of the Year? What about going on a cruise? What about getting a new car? What about moving from an apartment to a house? What about winning the Powerball $900 million jackpot? For all the Carolina fans, what about the Panthers who've seen the Panthers win the Super Bowl? Now, the list goes on, things that could possibly give us some type of happiness or excitement. Not to say that these things are bad, because they all have some type of value. But I want to look at what the scriptures say about being happy. Now, what I've done, I've printed some handouts for you. I'll just put them here for you. Okay? And you guys just want to pass them around. And as they're going around, what kind of intrigued me, I read a lot from the King James Version, and I've seen the word happy used multiple times there, but also not just happy, but the word blessed is used a lot, and it has similar meaning. And what I've done at the top of the printout is given a Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of what these two words mean by definition. So happy is enjoying or characterized by well-being and contentment, showing or causing feelings of pleasure and enjoyment. Blessed, of or enjoying happiness, bringing pleasure, contentment, or good fortune. There's multiple places in Scripture where the word happy and the word blessed are used. Okay, both words are similar. It would be the same as if I said my fellow sailor or if I said my shipmate. Right? So they both go hand in hand with one another. Same thing for happy and blessed. So what I want to do first is look at the first three references that I have here listed from the book of Psalm and the book of Proverbs. So starting out with Psalm 146, it says, "Do not put your trust in princes, nor in a son of man, in whom there is no help. His spirit departs, he returns to his earth. In that very day, his plans perish. Happy is he who has the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in the Lord his God, who made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, who keeps truth forever." Proverbs 16, written by King Solomon, he says this in verse 20, "He who heeds the word wisely will find good, and whoever trusts in the Lord, happy is he." King David wrote Psalm 144, and in verse 15 it says, "Happy are the people who are in such a state. Happy are the people whose God is the Lord." So what I'm going to do first, and just looking at the first passage here, in essence, it starts out basically what it's saying is that, not to put your trust in another person, whether it's someone of a position of authority or influence, such as a prince. Modern day language, you could say such as a governor or a mayor, right? Or not to put your trust in a regular Joe Blow, because everyone is frail, everyone is fallible, and everyone is imperfect, and anyone can let you down at any particular time. Now, when it says, "Happy is he who has the God of Jacob for his help," interesting that the phrase "the God of Jacob," and I did a little research just to get more insight, and I looked up BibleHub.com, and a gentleman named J. Baldwin Brown had this little breakdown of that. So it says the character of Jacob is one of the standing difficulties of the Old Testament because of the interest and love God cherished for him. Jacob does not stand out before us as a man of genius, as a hardy lover, as a faithful friend, or even as a noble or gallant foe. A vein of trickery and treachery runs through his veins. It runs through his nature. And when we look through his life, you see the tendency to prevail using underhanded tricks. We begin to wonder what God could see in this man to make him a prince in heavenly order, and why throughout Scripture the name of God of Jacob, God of Israel, is the name in which he especially delights. God chose Jacob and chooses to be called the God of Jacob. And even though Jacob was a man so full of human infirmity and littleness, God chose him and chose to be called the God of Jacob. Now, had God could have been chosen to call himself the God of Abraham or the God of Moses, and to take supreme interest in such lofty lives as those gentlemen. However, Jacob is more within our sphere. What God was to him, we can believe that he may be and will be to us. Thus, the name God of Jacob has a sound hill of comfort, full of assurance to our ears. And so to give a little break, I don't know if you know much about Jacob, but Jacob, he was a notorious trickster, right? The name Jacob actually means deceiver, crafty, right? Yet he's in the same lineage or the same genealogy in which Christ came, who is the Redeemer of the world. Now, Jacob did not have an eye-popping or pristine resume, but I think that the name God of Jacob tells us that no one is beyond God's reach, and no situation is beyond despair. If God can take a man like that, with such a shady and questionable character, such as Jacob, and use him for his glory, then God can use anyone. That in itself is a reason to be happy. All right? We see also in the first three references listed, the Bible tells us that happiness comes when we recognize in ourselves and in others there's weakness, there's shortcomings, there's inabilities, there's frailty, there's limitations, etc. But also when we acknowledge the true and living God, we put our trust, confidence, and dependency and hope in him, the one who is omnipotent and omnipresent, the one who is all-powerful and all-wise, the one who is trustworthy and dependable, the one who is abundantly gracious and merciful. So in essence, if you want to be happy, discard the I believe in myself and I believe in you attitude. Discard the if it's to be, it's up to me self-confidence. And embrace and cultivate the I am weak but God is strong attitude. Embrace and cultivate the I don't know but God knows attitude. Embrace and cultivate I ain't got this but God's got this attitude. Embrace and cultivate this is out of my control but this is in God's control attitude. And moving on to next, it's one thing to recognize our weaknesses and frailties and turn to the Lord and trust in him, but is that it? Do we just take God's wonderful blessings and keep them for ourselves? No. Now, God is in heaven, so his blessings flow down vertically. And from there, we bend out those blessings horizontally to our fellow man. Remember, we're blessed to be a blessing. And also, it's a blessing to be a blessing. You don't just keep it to yourself. So looking now at the next two passages from Proverbs and Matthew, King Solomon writes in Proverbs 14, he who despises his neighbor sins, but he who has mercy on the poor, happy is he. And Jesus tells us in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. All right. Now, mercy comes from mercy. Our mercy to each other comes from God's mercy to us. The key to becoming a merciful person is to become a broken person. You get the power to show mercy from the real feeling in your heart that you owe everything and you are everything to the sheer divine mercy from God. Okay? Now, what I want to do is, so we see that mercy doesn't come in and of ourselves, but we recognize where we were and we recognize our condition at the time and what God did to take us out of that. And so from there we see that I can't look down on my fellow man. I can't look down on my fellow woman. I can't do that because I know where I used to be. I know what I used to be like. I know what I used to be into. And I know that God has changed my nature and changed my desires to now I have to look favorably. I have to look lovingly on him who's who's maybe in a worse condition than I am, a worse state than I am.